Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 11 of Chess Mistakes of an A Player. In this group of games, I'd looked at another 11 games. This is actually the last group of games I'm going to look at. After that, there'll be one more episode where I do some kind of summary and conclusions. In this group of games, I was playing better. Did not as many horrible blunders in the last group, but my results were not much better. I had, I had 11 games with 6 wins. 6 losses, 3 wins, and 2 draws. So half a point better than the previous group of 11 games. So to make up for my, I didn't make as many tactical blunders, but I made quite a few strategic mistakes. So this video will have a little bit more of a strategic focus, I guess, and some pretty simple strategic ones too. So it's kind of interesting how your mind goes in phases. Because looking back, it's hard to see how I missed some of these. But here, let's start out by looking at some tactical missteps. So this is a position where I'm actually doing pretty well. I've built up a strong kingside initiative. This was a King's Indian defense, and Black is under some pressure. And he played in this move c5, trying to maybe stir up a little bit of trouble on the queen side, keep me from just crashing through on the king side here. And I played a bad move here. If you want to pause the video here and think about what you might play in this position, how you might continue. It's kind of an interesting position to look at. Okay, well, first I'll tell you what the chess engine thinks should be played. It starts out by playing d takes c6, just grabbing that pawn en passant, and after Black takes back, then pushing on with f5 and trying to open up some lines against the king. And I think that's a very logical way to proceed with the attack. It does look a little bit scary, opening up some lines towards the white king on the dark diagonal, but yeah, it looks like it's pretty good. The bishop can always come back to f4 to block that diagonal if necessary. So anyway, this is an advantage to white. It's not necessarily winning, but white has an attack and has the winning chances here. So I go from an advantage to basically losing with my move. And the move I played after he played c5, I played the move e5. And if you want to have another think, what's wrong with that move e5? It seems like it's kind of thematic, opening things up. See if you can spot the flaw in this move. Okay, it'll be easier to see what the problem is if we just go forward a few moves. So I play e5, he takes, which is pretty natural. I take black, I take back, and now he grabs on d5. And that's the problem. His queen and his knight were both attacking that pawn, which was only defended by the bishop. So you might wonder, how do mistakes like this happen? Because in retrospect, it seems pretty obvious. But in this position, when I made the move e5, that pawn at the moment is securely defended. It's only attacked once, and it's defended twice. So it's a good example of not taking into account all the effects of a move. When I push the pawn to e5, it obviously leaves the pawn just defended by the bishop and attacked by the knight. But after the exchange, it also opens up this line from the queen to the pawn, and then that pawn is under-defended and just losing. In fact, after e5 and pawn takes, the chess engine doesn't want to take back here, but wants to push on with f5 and play a pawn down. And maybe it's not too bad, but basically Black is just a pawn up in that position. He should be able to hold it. So e5 just I went from a winning position to or nearly winning position to a losing position just in one move. Okay, the next one I wanted to look at. This is another tactical problem. We're on move 33. I actually had played some interesting tactics here earlier in this game, and I won a piece. So I have 2 knights and a queen against 1 knight and a queen, but Black has some pawns. Let's see, and he played the move knight to c2. It looks like he's getting ready to maybe deliver a check from e1 or e3, relying on the pin on the f-pawn from his queen. So that looks like that's Black's idea. And, well, why don't you pause the video here and see if you can find the best continuation for white right here. Okay, well, I'll start by telling you what I played, which was not correct. I played knight to d3, harassing his queen. I figured this check was harmless. If the knight goes to e3, I can move my king to f3. And if the knight goes here, I can move my king to g3. And it looks like there's no more checks if the knight goes to e1. And then he'll have to move his queen. And the move that I overlooked is he can just take, because this knight on c2 has defended that square. So the knight on c2, I was more focused on the fact that it was attacking this way. I didn't notice it was also attacking this pawn. But that aside, after knight c2, let's erase all of these arrows, which are a distraction. White has a much better move. So why don't you see if you can find the move for white if you didn't find it already. Okay, there's a, I'm giving the answer away now. There's a mate in 5 in this position. And it starts with the move queen e8 check. So queen e8 check is, forces the king to h7. It's only legal move. And then the follow-up, which is maybe, obviously I saw the check, but maybe I didn't see the follow-up. But the follow-up is knight to g6. And this threatens mate. Now, it's not with a check, so you do have to, in calculating the sequence, make sure that there's no disruptive checks from black. But as it turns out, like I said before, this check can be met with king f3, and then there's nothing that black can do. On most moves, I'm just going to play queen to h8 checkmate, and if he takes the knight, which is the way to survive the longest, I have pawn takes mate. A very pretty mate. So I just had to show that. The mate is delivered by the pawn. The pawn is protected by the queen, and the queen cuts off the escape there. So the king is just caught in that triangle. So why is that a difficult tactic to see? Well, there's two things going on. One is there's one move in there that's without a check. So if you're just looking at checking every move, there's no sequence which delivers the mate with nothing but checks. So you have this one quiet move. And then the second thing you have to notice is that the queen on this square is going to protect the pawn on this square, and because this pawn is not going to be in the way, and the queen is going to be on a new location. So, but once you notice those things, then the mate just rolls forward like clockwork. And that's how the game should have ended. Anyway, let's see. After the move I played, I went with knight d3 here, and he took the pawn. And in this position, I think maybe there's still a slight edge for white. I have to avoid the trade and move my queen. But it's difficult to play, and black has drawing chances. And in fact, he did manage to draw this game. So that's it for the tactical mistakes. Let's go on and look at some of the strategic mistakes. Let's see, this game here. Move 17. Okay, let's see. I just come in here with my knight giving a check. He brings his king forward. And now it's my turn to move. And notice that there's a couple pieces under attack. His bishop is under attack, my bishop is under attack, and the knight is also forking my bishop and my pawn. So, with those things in mind, what's the best move for white here? And this considerations are more strategic than tactical. I think I pointed out all the tactics, so there's no hidden tactics here. It's just purely a strategic decision. What's the best way for white to respond in this situation? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. Let's start with taking the bishop. I could just trade bishops here, but this in fact is not particularly a good idea. Let's see, if I come up here to harass his knight, let's see, I could activate my king going to f3, but this doesn't do a whole lot. And if we look at the bishops, this is actually a pretty good piece. It's on an active diagonal, whereas this bishop is trapped behind these pawns. In fact, this is a Slav defense that's gone wrong. It's a Slav defense where black never got in the freeing move c5. There's still some potential that might be played later. But basically, I want to keep his bishop on the board and play against it. So the move I actually played, which is also a mistake, was I played the bishop back to f1 to defend the pawn. But that's not a good move either. So the best move here is bishop to e4. It's the same idea. I'm just moving the bishop out of take and defending the pawn, but this is just a much more active square for the bishop, and it keeps up this pressure along this diagonal and prevents him from moving the pawn forward. His bishop is under attack, and even if it's defended by the rook, for example, he still can't push the pawn to c5 because the bishop and the knight will both be attacking it, and I can bring more pressure on the c file with my rook. So this is the way to play, and it's quite a strong advantage to white. So that seems pretty simple. You might ask yourself, how could I make a mistake like that? So let's back up a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting to study how these mistakes arise. Let's see. Yeah, there was just a trade here of queens. The queens just came off, and then my opponent played the move knight f4. And right here in this position, I spotted the move knight to d6 and played it. And that turns out to be a good move. It discomfits his king, and puts the knight on a good square and puts some pressure on the bishop. So knight d6 was a good move. But in this position, when he played knight f4, the first thing I noticed was, of course, that he's attacking my bishop and he's attacking the pawn. He's got a fork there. And in this position, the only way I have to defend against that fork is to play bishop f1. So I probably decided at this point that I was going to play bishop f1. And then I noticed that I had this knight d6 move, and I said, oh, I can throw that in because that's with check, and maybe it'll lead to something. After king e7, I saw that, there was no point in trading bishops, so I just played the move that I had already planned, which was bishop to f1, and didn't notice that that knight move had opened up the square on e4, and there's a much better square for that bishop after moving the knight. And I think that's how a lot of these mistakes can happen. So after knight f4, knight d6 check is a good move, but I didn't notice all the good features of that move. And one of the key features of this knight d6 move is it opened up a square for the bishop. Okay, next game. Let's see, we're on move 23 here. This is a pretty simple one, as I recall. Here. Okay, so I have the black pieces here. Let's turn this around. And let's see, I have a pretty good position here. I've got my bishops out, and they're in on active squares. And I think I'm doing okay here. But I start making little mistakes and giving up my advantages bit by bit. And it started with this move. My opponent played knight to f2 here. So he dropped his knight back, which blocks this diagonal, so it frees up this knight to move, and it exposes an attack on my rook. So what's the best response for black in this position? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. Well, first of all, what I played rook takes e1, and after rook takes, we actually get a position which is about even. So so we've gone from a position where I was pretty much in the driver's seat. I had I don't know, almost a winning edge, maybe a winning edge with perfect play. And after this exchange, a lot of my advantage has evaporated. And how did that happen? It happened because of this exchange, and the fact that when I exchange rooks here, I give up the e-file. A much more natural move here, and a much more correct move from a positional point of view, is just to defend the rook. You know, that will probably force an exchange in any case. And let's see, what was the line after that? Yeah, the engine wants to just go ahead and take here. But the difference now is that I end up with the rook on the e-file, and I keep an advantage with this. He can't immediately contest this. And I just have better and more active pieces. It's not like a huge advantage, but there is an advantage to white, and maybe a winning advantage with good play. So anyway, don't give up those central files if you don't have to. And the last one. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's this position. So I have the black pieces again. And my opponent just played the move queen to f4. And it's my turn to move here. This is a Ruy Lopez. Let's count the material. Yeah, the material is even here. And actually, I got a pretty good position out of the Ruy here. I think I have maybe the better chances here. Slightly better position for black than for white. But it's maybe not so easy to see what the right idea is here, or the best way to proceed, how to realize this advantage for black. And in this position, I make a mistake. So I think this idea is mostly positional. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can figure out what is the best move for black in this position. Okay, well, I'll tell you my mistake first. I played the move c5, and this is not a huge blunder. It's just not the best move. After some exchanges, knight comes back to b3, queen goes to e5. Get this kind of position, and I think this is a. I'm starting to experience some weaknesses here. So let's back up, and we'll return to that one actually. But let's talk first about what I should have played here. This is an example of getting rid of your weaknesses. It seems like white has these doubled pawns, so why would you undouble them? But this weakness over here is even more serious. And actually, c5 also undoubled his pawn, so that maybe helped white as well. But the way to think about this is that I have a serious weakness in the a pawn here, and I don't want to be stuck defending that pawn all the time, and I have an opportunity right here to dissolve that weakness. And so it looks like just plunging on with a5 is the right way to play this position, and then I do have a slight edge. I have some space on the queen side and active pieces, and I should be okay in this position. So let's back up and let's go through the game, because I thought it was kind of interesting the way it went down. So I pushed c5 instead of a5. Also getting rid of his doubled pawn. Let's see, went knight b3, I went queen e5. Yeah, I wasn't intending to trade queens. I think this knight b3 move caught me a little bit by surprise. He traded queens here. I took back. Let's see, and he comes in with c5. And now you can see he's starting to put pressure on this pawn, as well as threatening to trade off my bishop, which is a good piece, and I wanted to keep it. So I went bishop c6. He goes b4, trying to fix my weakness. Let's see, I went rook e to c8, trying to get some pressure against his knights here. He goes f3. And then once again, this is a second chance where I could have played a5. And this also has the advantage here that it destabilizes his knight. So a5 in this position would be a good move, and also an example of getting rid of my weaknesses. Let's see, I tried the move bishop e8, and then after a few more moves, I just find myself in a terrible position here. I've shored up my king side over here, so these pawns are all solid, but white's pieces are all active, and this pressure is building on my a pawn, and I have no easy way to defend it. This bishop got chased away by the knight. Well, I voluntarily moved it out of the way so I'd get some action along the c file, but it didn't work out. I didn't take advantage of that. So maybe I was thinking of preparing the move a5 by getting the bishop out of the way, but I needed to strike immediately. So anyway, let's go back to that position here. Yeah, right here. I might have been preparing the move a5 by moving the bishop out of the way, but well, it was important right here to to play the move a5 immediately. He responded with after bishop e8. Yeah, so just active moves from white here, and my position falls apart. So this is my last chance to play a5. Okay, so that's it for this video, and stay tuned for the next one where I do some wrap up. See you guys then. Bye.